everybody. Welcome to Learning the Scottish Great Highland Bagpipe with me, J.D. Ingram, pipe major of the Charleston Pipe Band. This week we're going to be learning
Lesson 14, The High Road to Gairloch. Your goal is to be able to play the tune, The High Road to Gairloch, at a steady tempo and with correct use of embellishments. We'll discuss the idea of march music and marching in parades. Try to begin to memorize the tune. Your homework is to memorize the tune, The High Road to Gairloch. Extra resources can be found in the College of Piping Tutor, Part 1, page 40. All right, so we're going to learn a new tune. Let's start off with our mental checklist again. Remember, the checklist is first, what is the time signature? Then what is the idiom or the required tempo? Then we look at the difficult spots in the tune where there might be a risk of a crossing noise, and then where we have embellishment issues, potential issues with things like D-throws or spots where a difficult embellishment is coming up after a quick note or before a quick note. And then last but not least, what is the roadmap to the tune? Are there repeats? Are there spots where it tells you to jump ahead or behind? Looking at High Road to Gairloch, we're going to be looking at a typical 2/4 march, so we will look at the sheet music next. Here's the sheet music for the High Road to Gairloch. Let's take a look at it together. Go ahead and either screen capture or print this out, and we'll be taking notes going forward.
All right, here's your first traditional Scottish march, The High Road to Gairloch. We are going to just look through the music together first. We've talked through the checklist before, so let's look at the items on the checklist. First of all, what's the time signature? Well, it's a 2/4 march. 2/4 marches in the kind of traditional bagpipe Scottish idiom are typically very much in twos, right? You've got 2 quarter notes per bar because it's 2/4. They tend to be put together in musical ideas of 2 bars. So a phrase will be 2 bars. They're organized in lines where there's a kind of a question phrase and an answer phrase, so 2 phrases per line. You'll have a question and answer, and then you'll have a second line with a question and a resolution, or an ending phrase. So there's 2 lines per part. Each part will be played twice, and then this whole tune has 2 parts. So it doubles all the way up. The idiom or required tempo. So march is going to be something that you march to. It's stuff you play in a parade. In the long run, ideally, we're going to be playing this close to 80 beats a minute, at least somewhere above 70. Some people will play it as high as 90, but in the short term, we should be looking at learning it in kind of the 30 to 50 beats per minute range and kind of shoot for at least getting it to 60 before we move on. Points in the tune that have crossing noise risk, we'll walk through that in a minute, and embellishments to watch out for, and a roadmap. We'll talk through those in just a second. First, I'm going to just clap through the tune. So go ahead and look at the music, and at our tempo of just kind of a steady, slow tempo, I'm going to clap. So the tune goes E, F, E, A, doubling, A, E, throw, F, E, throw, G, doubling, G, throw, E, F, E, A, doubling, A, E, A, B, doubling, A, doubling, A, and then the second part goes doubling, A, B, doubling, A, doubling, throw, C, B, C, throw, B, throw, doubling, A, B, doubling, B, doubling, E, A, B, throw, doubling, A, doubling, A. So that's the rhythms we're looking for. A lot of it's fairly simple. You got a couple places with a dot and cut. Make sure you really lean into that dot and cut the cut. That's a kind of folk idiomatic thing where instead of a dot being 75% and the cut being 25% of the beat, we actually want to lean more into it where it's that dotted note gets 80 to maybe sometimes even close to 90% of the beat, and that cut note is reduced just as much to 10 or 20% of the beat. And then watch out for spots where you've got a lot of higher note density. So like in bar 3, throw F, E, throw G. You've got 5 notes in that bar where most other bars have 3 or 4. That's one to watch out for. We'll talk about some difficult spots next.
I've marked up a copy here with the 2 biggest crossing noise risk spots circled in red. This is by no means the only places that crossing noises could occur, but this is probably the most common 2 places where people have crossing noises, so it's definitely worth paying extra attention here.
All right, so we've done the high-level look at just clapping through and kind of talking about the tune. Let's zoom in on a couple of the spots where crossing noises might creep in, because crossing noises are the number one thing to avoid. The first spot I have identified is that bar 3 of line 1, from D throw to F, you are crossing hand to hand. Now, if you're doing it right, you shouldn't get a crossing noise here. We go, that's your light D throw or a heavy D throw. From D to F. In super slow motion, right? Before you even close these fingers down, you should be starting to the bridge between your D and your F with a G grace note. And then you finish closing your fingers down, and then you finish your G grace note. So there's no opportunity for a crossing noise. But if your grace note is not acting as a bridge from the first note to the second note, you will see, and I do hear people sometimes go, and get that low A crossing noise or something like that. So watch out for that. Make sure the grace note is covering the bridge. Frankly, you can, if you start your G grace note early enough, you can do what would otherwise be a crossing noise. If I was going to play without the G grace note, I can do exactly that, but have my G finger up, and it covers that crossing noise. So the grace note gives us some grace here, if you will, grace note on avoiding crossing noises. The next spot I highlighted is down at the bottom of the page, bar 2. We go from C doubling to E. This one is a huge opportunity for crossing noises. C to E's are difficult. You got to get these 2 fingers down, your pinky and your ring finger up. And the trick to avoiding the crossing noise is to have an infinitesimal lead with this ring finger. You don't want to go, because that is the third kind of crossing noise, right, is a false finger, where you're playing an out of tune E. So you don't want to leave these 2 fingers up for a long time, but you do want them to close at least a microsecond or so after this ring finger is coming up. Other than that, this tune is fairly simple from a crossing noise standpoint, so keep working your way through it and make sure that those 2 spots are clean.
Here I've starred some different embellishment spots for you. All of the places with a gold star with a gold fill are areas where you have a doubling followed by an E grace note down. Remember, this is called the tarragon. Check back to that lesson for extra practice. I've starred all of the D throws in red, so note those come in kind of 2 little spurts, and then the stars that are gold with a blue interior are doublings without an E grace note afterwards, so just regular doublings, not tarragons.
All right. The spots where the doublings and embellishments are going to get after us. The first one is in bar 2. We've got a C doubling followed by an E grace note to low A. Notice that C doubling is a G grace note to C and a D grace note to C, and then the E grace note to low A follows up our G D E pattern. We talked about this in the Tackums lesson. Let's try just that out. And I call this the tarragon from C. happens a lot in this tune, so make sure you're really good with your C pterygons. The next spot is the D throws that occur in bars 3 and 4 of the first line. And we've already looked at that spot as a potential crossing noise spot as well. And then immediately after that, there's a spot to work on and make sure you're comfortable with. And then at the end of the line, there's another D throw from low G. That's a little weird if you're playing the heavy low G like I am, or the heavy D throw like I am. We're already playing our first low G, so it just is the grace note to your second low G, open to C, open to D. And that's coming right out of a B pterygon, the B doubling followed by E grace note to low A. So make sure that that's clean as well. Looking at the second line, we've got another C pterygon in bar 2. And then we've got a C pterygon in bar 3. And just a plain B doubling in bar 4. And watch out for that coming from the note before any of our doublings. Make sure that G grace note is the transition. Watch out for those. Make sure that grace note is good and clean. Line 3 starts with a C pterygon. And then it has a C pterygon in bar 2. And then a clean C doubling. So good C doublings, good C pterygons. Got some more D throws. And that happens again in bar, leading into bar 4. With 2 D throws in bar 4. Line 4 starts with a C pterygon. The next bar starts with a slightly different C pterygon. We're only going 1 note down instead of 2. Make sure you don't get psyched out when that happens. And then it follows with another C doubling. And then at the end of the line, we've got a C pterygon and a B doubling. So it's good practice to look at those spots first and make sure you're prepared for the heavier embellishments.
Here I've highlighted the phrases in the sheet music. Note the first 2 bars of the first line are identical to the 2 bars right below them, both highlighted in blue. The last half of the first line is highlighted in yellow. It is unique in the tune. The last half of the second line is highlighted in red, and it is identical to the last half of the last line. There's a star there to note the repeat dots, which tells you that you're going to repeat back to the previous repeat dots. So the first 2 lines are played and then repeated, and then the third and fourth line are played and then repeated. And then also I've highlighted the 2 phrases, the 2 bars at the beginning of the third line and the 2 bars at the beginning of the fourth line are both in green but slightly different colors. You'll note they're almost identical. The only difference is basically 2 notes in the second bar of each of those sections. The last half of the third line is highlighted in purple. It is also unique in the tune.
All right, let's talk about the roadmap now. If you'll notice this tune, I mentioned earlier that the tune is written with 2 beats per bar, 2 bars per phrase or musical thought, 2 phrases per line, 2 lines per part. So you'll notice the first 2 bars are a musical thought. You've got E, F, E, A, doubling, A, E. And if you look right below that, you've got the exact same thing. So you've got this kind of intro theme, and then we have all this stuff with the D throws, and we've got the intro theme again. So question, answer with some D throws, question, and then we've got the last 2 bars of line 2. C, A, B pterygon, B doubling, low A, is this our conclusion. If you look at that conclusion, look straight down the page to the last 2 bars, same conclusion. So you've got the first part, question, answer, same question, resolution. And then the second part, we've got a question, answer, question, exact same resolution from the first part. So that resolution is what ties the 2 parts together. The second part starts with Terragon, A, B, Terragon, doubling. That's our question. You've got an answer with some D throws again. Throw-da-da-da, throw-da-da, but it's different from the first part. And then the last line starts Terragon, A, B, Terragon. We change the question just a little bit. C doubling B, C doubling E. So it's similar question, but not quite the same. So that's something to watch out for. You've got an A question, and then B answer, the same A question, and then a resolution for the first part. Then you've got the C question, if you will, a D answer, a C modified question for the second part, and then but the original resolution. So working through the tune, if we work on the phrases that are most common first, that can help us learn the tune faster. So I'm going to go phrase by phrase from most common to least common. First, let's look at the ending phrase, this resolution phrase that ties both parts together. And that is A, B, Terragon, B doubling, low A. Nice and slow, it goes something like this. Once more. Make sure your doublings are good. Nice articulations. Chirp, chirp for your doubling. And then that Terragon uses the right graze notes, G, D, E. And that happens twice. Once in the first part, once in the second part. Second most, or tied for the most common, is that intro theme. So let's try that. First two bars of line 1 goes E, F, E, A, Terragon, E. All fairly simple. Again. Work to get comfortable with that. The next phrase I'm going to look at is the theme of the second part. So first two lines of first two bars of line 3. Terragon, A, B, Terragon, doubling, goes like this. Once more. Then the modified version of that phrase right below it, looking at line 4, first two bars. So we've changed one note and added one note. Watch out for that in the second bar. Once again. The remaining two phrases to look at are the answer phrases from the first part and the second part. So let's look at the one in the second part first. Bars 3 and 4 of line 3. Starts with a D throw, and then a short C to B, and then a short C to D throw. That's one spot people will get hung up. They'll go and hold that C too long. This is a good spot to practice what is sometimes called graze note fusion, where you fuse a real note that is short into an embellishment. So we're going to actually practice playing that B and then pretending that C is part of the D throw. Right? B, C, G, G, C, D, where that C is basically the same length as the steps of the D throw. Try that one more time. Nice open D throw helps get that C fused into it. We'll try that whole phrase now. Nice open heavy D throws right now. And then the answer phrase of the first part. Starts with a D throw. We've got a quick F and a quick E, and then another D throw. So again, think about grace note fusion, that E basically becoming part of the D throw. And then you've got a E grace note to low G, B tertian, and then that D throw we talked about earlier. Let's try the whole phrase. Again. And that's all of the music in the whole tune. So string it together in the right order. I'll play the whole thing nice and slow. Here we go. Ready? Play. Repeat it. Second part. Repeat. So that's how that tune goes slow. Up to speed, what we're looking for in the long run is something like this. And I'll play one time through each part just to give you a feel for how they go. Ready? Play. Second part. Cool. So that's what we're looking for in the long run. But in the short term, like I did it before, nice and slow and controlled. Open doublings, controlled, open D throws. If you're playing the light D throw, that's fine. If you're playing the heavy D throw, that's what I'm doing. But make sure we're using good embellishments, no crossing noises, and good grace note fusion where appropriate. Cool.
Thanks for joining me again, guys. Some final thoughts for you. Keep in mind everything we've learned. Just because we're starting to learn tunes now doesn't mean it's a good time to forget about having good crisp grace notes that occur on the note transition between two notes or on the beat. It's not time to forget about clean transitions where you don't have embellishments or grace notes and letting yourself get sloppy about it, crossing noises. And certainly don't forget about having nice controlled embellishments, your doublings, your D throws. At this point in our learning journey, we should probably still be having those nice and slow and controlled. Just don't get ahead of yourself at this point. I know we're at a jumping off point where people get excited. Go ahead and review the thoughts written in the College of Piping Tutor, Part 1, page 46. There's some good thoughts about learning the high road to Gairloch there. And as always, get cracking.